Hey, so this video was originally part of my Barbenheimer review, but the segment ended up being longer than I expected. I found that it ruined the video's pacing, so enjoy this quickie as I'm making longer content for the channel. Anyways, come with me as we mourn the loss of media literacy on YouTube.
What none of us expected was 114 minutes of spiteful, bitter, mean-spirited, borderline unhinged hatred of men and everything even vaguely associated with them.
So Barbie doing very, very well, despite the fact that the film is not really about the Barbie doll that people probably are going to see the film to expect, but instead is a 2-hour rant and really just a lecture on third-wave radical feminism.
This is third-wave, intersectional, subversive, man-hating, power-hungry, destructive feminism.
I hated this film. I gave it, I think, like a 1 out of 5 stars on my Letterboxd and stuff, and mostly it was because of just how absolutely ridiculous the preaching of the message was in this entire film. It just took me right out of the film the entire time.
Barbie is like the deformed, mutated rage child of Captain Marvel, Ghostbusters 2016, and She-Hulk.
So, I don't think I've seen this much copium online for a movie. When listening to these reviews, you wouldn't guess that some of these guys have hundreds of thousands of subscribers. Some people might think it'd be better just to ignore these videos, but I have 2 objections to that. 1, I live in a community where I know a lot of people my age are actually watching these reviewers. And 2, the reviews are some of the first ones you see when you look up Barbie on YouTube. So, as someone who's neutral on the film, I think it'd be good to give my opinion on these criticisms and talk about whether or not they're actually valid. Okay, let's get the main complaint out of the way. The majority of these guys are complaining that the film treats all men as horrible sexist scumbags.
This is a movie made by people who utterly despise men and masculinity, or any kind of traditional gender roles of any kind.
There's a lot of generalizations that are so sweeping that don't really fit the broad perspective of men. But once again, this movie isn't really made for men. And that's the problem, is that it's obviously not made for men, but then tries to do commentary on men, but it's from the perspective of women. I'm like, is this what women all think men do, is like horses and wear cowboy hats and like play acoustic guitars on the beach?
Well, Mike, let me answer your question. The reason why the film has such a big focus on men is because it's talking about general gender roles set by society. The interests and traits of the Kens aren't inherently toxic, but for most first world countries, these interests are promoted as the default personality for men. Much like how Barbie dolls promote that women have to be something incredible in order to do good for society, the film is saying that men don't have to be defined by their girlfriends and these traditional male traits in order to be worthwhile. Basically, the film is critical of the boxes men are put into. Now, these guys seem to have the idea that the film thinks the treatment of the Kens in the first act is how the creators of this film think men should be treated in the real world. First off, Noah Baumbach is one of the 2 writers credited for this movie, and I highly doubt he would want to be treated as just an accessory to his wife. But never mind him, it's Greta Gerwig's movie after all. She's the problem. Okay, so if she's such a man-hating feminist, why would she give Ken a redemption arc? I find Ken to be portrayed quite sympathetic in the movie, with his frustrations of Barbie's rejection. By the way, all the dolls are shown to have simplistic worldviews. So when Ken brings patriarchy back to Barbie Land, it's not because, oh, I'm an evil person and I want to oppress the Barbies. He sees a society that personally benefits him. And it showed later on in the film that there are good parts of the society. After all, he finds horses and drip. But unfortunately, this lifestyle also objectifies women, which explains why Ken didn't fully understand patriarchy. He literally says in the movie that he stopped liking it once he found out it wasn't mainly about horses. Barbie even apologizes to Ken on how she's been treating him throughout the movie. I find it disingenuous to say that Ken is a punching bag, when all his actions are the result of him feeling unwanted by Barbie. That's why his character arc ends on him accepting himself as his own separate doll and confiding with his bros. Also, I find it really convenient that every reviewer that says this forgets that Alan is a character. He helps the Barbies restore their power in Barbie Land, and he's just portrayed as a good guy throughout the entire film. You see, little dumb me, I thought that they were at least going to address the fact that he exists, and complain about the fact that he's weak, calling him a beta male or whatever, but they just pretend that he doesn't exist. You know, that is a pretty good arguing strategy. Just ignore everything about the film that negates your argument. Boom! It's not like your fans are actually gonna watch this and critique you. You know what's funny? Is that Drinker had a criticism of the film that I actually agreed with. But of course he completely ruined it. You see, he acts like the Kens go completely back to their regular lifestyle. No, they get a person in government.
Men and women are both pretty awesome, and maybe we do well to work together instead of unfairly elevating one group above the other. But nope, the Barbies go right back to being in charge of everything again, and the Kens slide back into a meaningless, depressing existence of being irrelevant second-class citizens. And that, I think, is supposed to be a happy ending?
So for people who don't remember, the Barbies get control of government again, and the Kens ask if they could have one Ken in Congress. And then President Barbie's like, oh yeah, but he'll not be in a position of actual power. And then the narrator goes, you know what? Maybe one day, Kens will have the same rights in Barbie Land as women do in the real world. Like, I get the commentary, but for a film that was trying to point out the faults of Barbie Land, I feel like ending it with the Kens just achieving a diversity hire kind of negates the progress the Barbies had in seeing the Kens as more than just their accessory. Besides the whole man-hating thing, they're just straight up ignoring parts of the plot.
There's a scene in this movie where a young girl, high school girl, screams at Barbie that she's a fascist. And Barbie runs away crying. And it's like, that's not funny.
And I'm bringing this up because I feel like this really shows their lack of media literacy. All these guys seem to assume that you're supposed to agree with her. Why would you think that? Because she's obviously supposed to be a pain to her mom. Gloria is the POV human character, and the reason why she's sad is because she has no idea of how to connect to her daughter. Like the fact that every one of these guys seems to think that the fascist line was unironic. Like, I understand that you just assume everyone in Hollywood's a communist, but I feel like you should have way more of a critical lens than that. Besides that, most of the criticisms seem to come from straight up lying.
So you're a woman who wants to be a mother or a homemaker? Screw you, fascist!
Drinker. The entire point of the film was that women don't have to be these girl bosses in order to be important. That was Gloria's whole speech. I get that you were probably tuning that speech out because you don't like minority groups talking about their rights, but she was literally saying that she felt like women are forced to be these super empowered girl bosses. I mean, the film ends with her being able to make a regular Barbie who's just a normal person. And also, a big part of her is just how she's a mom. Like, she's just a regular mom. How is this film against mothers when the main human character is a mom? 1.3 million views. Wait, how many likes does this video have? How many likes? How many likes does this video have? 100,063 likes. Oh my god. I swear if this man wasn't...
So when Barbie eventually returns to Barbie Land, she discovers to her horror that Ken has brought the patriarchy back with him and turned the whole place into a giant frat party in the space of like a day. Finally, a plot event I can get behind.
Okay, whatever. I mean, I highly doubt that most of these people who like the video even watch the film. I'm fine with you disliking this film. Personally, I was disappointed by it, but can you at least watch the movie before deciding that you don't like it? And don't get all of your opinions from Scottish knockoff Lee Child. One last thing before I leave this topic. It was really funny seeing how the guys dealt with the fact that women love this film. In the review, Josiah and Mike obviously know that this film is doing well, and, you know, they hate it, but they don't want to discriminate against their female audience. So they just kind of dance around the fact that maybe the reason why women love it so much is because they just don't understand how it's sexist.
If this film was about any other subject, I think that it would have been completely and utterly panned by everybody. But because it's about Barbie, and because it's specifically marketed towards women, I think that there's a shield around it that protects it from that, because there's something in here. If I made a movie about a people group and talked about how assaulted that people group was and how, you know, empowered they needed to become and how they need to band together and work together to not become victims, that people group would probably love that movie. And so if you make a movie for women that it spends its entire runtime empowering women, and then the messages are about not letting women become victims and not all of that stuff, most women will probably enjoy that. And I don't think that that's necessarily a fault on anybody for liking this movie. I just think that it's definitely marketed a very specific way. But then there are also, some very, very heavy-handed messages in this that are so awful that it just drags the movie straight down.
If there is a massive drop-off, we'll know exactly why. If there isn't a massive drop-off, again, I think we'll have an idea as to why, but also to me, it would actually just make me incredibly sad for the current state of our country, where people just, again, can't quite understand the fact of what's going on and how they're being played and lied to. Check out the Critical Drinkers video, The Greatest Lie Ever Sold. That essentially is what this movie is.
And I can't help but wonder how many future man-hating psychopaths are going to be created because of this film.
This film is really pandering towards women, but I can't really blame them. After all, they're too much of a bunch of stupid bitches to realize this. You know, I finally realized why this film opened the same weekend as Oppenheimer. This is literally Hiroshima for sexist people.